Welcome to Bunnyfish Crafts. I'm your host Heather, known as Bunnyfish on Ravelry, Plurk, Instagram, and YouTube. Today is Monday, the 30th of June, 2014, and this is episode 85, Returning to Normal. Grab some sticks and string and come sit with me. The last week I've been attempting to get back to normal after my awesome ZK vacation, but it's really hard to get back into routine after a retreat like that. So, I don't know, things are still going crazy. Also, my sister randomly visited yesterday, which is a big deal because I live in northern Kentucky and she lives in Michigan, about 20 minutes from Detroit. So there's a whole state plus some in between us. She was gone from home for about 24 hours. Approximately 11 hours on the road, plus she took a nap at a rest area. So 11-ish hours on the road, 13-ish hours here. She came here, she took a nap, she took a bath, we got dinner, we went to the park, not all in that order. It was good. Sometimes you just need to run away to your big sister's house. I fully support that. So it was really good seeing her, but now I'm like, it's kind of like the day after the ZK all over again, where I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm not gonna hang out with someone all day doing whatever. So I'm back to that spot again in the getting over it part. It was awesome to see her. She also brought my brother, which is cool. It's his first time visiting me since I moved to Kentucky. I've seen him a few times when I went back to Michigan, but it's his first time down here. It was good. I love my siblings. We have some knit-alongs upcoming. By the time you see this, one will have started. The July-August knit-along is going to be stuffies because all of a sudden I need to knit all of the stuffies. So what do you want to see first? I'll show you the prize first. There's only one prize right now, but if there are 11D stuffies, there will be more prizes added later. I figured that the Dancing Dog Die Works would be great for that. It's the Flamenco DK, and the colorway is, I believe. So that's up for grabs. And you can have a work in progress stuffy. Please still have some work to go on it, not just assemblage. So for instance, one of the stuffies that I plan to finish in this time period, you remember that owl that I dyed the yarn for? Yeah, I still haven't closed it, but I still have to make the eyes and put those on. So that is actual crocheting that needs to be done, not just closing up the top. I'm also going to make a panda for my sister using this as the black spots. It's got some weight in it, so I might cut those parts out. But the white stripes are very small, so I don't know yet. They're not even white, they're just really light. But I am going to get some white yarn because I don't have any white yarn in my stash, white sock yarn, so I need to get some of that. Then I will be making that for my sister. Using the pattern is by Lydia Trisselt, so if you want to look that up. But you'll see it in a couple weeks at most. I also want to make an adorable stuffed elephant for my best friend who, by the way, so this is really scary in my life. My best friend has epilepsy, so she's high risk in her pregnancy, and they've been trying to get pregnant for a while. And I found out at the ZK that she was pregnant, so that's awesome. On Friday, she had a seizure, and she was on vacation in New Jersey area. That's where her parents live, so she was visiting them. But she wasn't actually in New Jersey. She was in a state right next to there. I can't remember which one because they went all over. Anyway, she went into into a hospital around there to check and see if the baby was okay, and they totally blew her off. Totally, they like laughed in her face and stuff. So she just went to she went to her doctor because she got home last night. So she went to her doctor today, and the baby's heartbeat is great. So yay, that's exciting. And this is going to be an elephant for the baby's room. But I don't think I'm going to use all of the purple because the elephant pattern I have in mind is very small. So those are my plans right now. Also, in Stuffy Land, I started something for this knit along because I couldn't wait. This is going to be a Dirk Dragon by Lydia Trusselt, and I'm not going to fuss with it right now because this yarn is Red Heart Super Saver in toffee or something. My daughter is being ridiculous this morning. First she was throwing fits and now she's counting really loud. I can't get away from it. I waited for like an hour for her to just calm down and be quiet. It's not going to happen. So anyway, so this is going to be Dirk, and I'm not going to fuss with it because although this is Red Heart Super Saver, which is acrylic, for the body I'm holding 2 strands of fingering weight together because I want this to be a big dragon. It's going to be for my son for his birthday. And one strand is this Bamboo and You pattern in the bright multi, and the other, this is not the ball band for this yarn, but this yarn has cashmere content. And yeah, I love my son so much I'm going to use cashmere yarn. So I work on the part of the dragon that I'm going to work on for the day, and then I wash my hands and I wash my crochet hook and I put it off to the side where I'm not going to accidentally touch it. Someone sent the yarn specifically for him because I didn't have orange yarn, and they were like, I have orange yarn in my stash and it has cashmere in it. So it's fine. I really like the 2 strands held together. I think it gives a really cool effect. Like the pinks of the one yarn are toned down, and I think it looks totally like a fire dragon. And these eyes are the dragon Amy eyes that I got last week at the ZK. Aren't they perfect? I think they're super perfect. I love them on this dragon. This dragon's gonna be adorable. Tricky part is only working on it when my son is not going to see it, because he almost caught me the other day when I was putting on ears. He was like, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing. I'm not doing anything. Go away, go. And he's like, fine, Mom, jeez. But he hasn't figured it out that I'm making it for him yet, so that's good. I think those are all the stuffies that I want to work on this month or next month. So yeah, stuffies knit along. The other knit along that will be coming up will be in September and October. It'll be a finish it or frog it. So it doesn't have to be a work in progress to count for the finish it. It'll be anything that you finish, but it can be a work in progress. And for the frog it portion, you just need to take a picture of something in progress and then another picture of the yarn once it's been ripped out. And this will definitely be a prize for that. And again, if there are a lot of entries, there will be more than one prize, but I don't usually have a ton of entries, so one prize seems like a good idea. This is from Daisy Knits. It is the Hardy 2.0 base, which is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon in the Wicked Cool colorway. So pretty. And I'll obviously re-give these instructions when it's closer to the actual knit along. I'm dropping things all over the place. I'm going to reset up my desk because it's a mess, and I will be right back. Finished objects, the ZK edition. May 26th, 2014. I made a scarf for, seems really long, for Jenna's dragon, Dirk, the one that I made, I don't know, at the beginning of the year. I said, because Dirk is supposed to wear a scarf, but I didn't make a scarf, I said to Jenna that Dirk needed a pink scarf. So I don't know if she made him one, or her, it. I don't know if the dragon has a scarf, but now the dragon has a pink and gray scarf, and it should wrap around the neck just fine and still be long enough to look proportional to Dirk's very long, like the dragon, if the dragon was this tall, the torso is this tall, very short legs, very small head comparatively. So I made a scarf using my hand spun the faux Angora and merino. I had 18 yards left from the cowl, so I used 16 yards, I think, to make this little scarf. I made a hummingbird for Lucas. He really likes hummingbirds. So I made one using the Bluebird of Happiness pattern, which I don't know who it's by because there was no name on the download and I didn't go to Ravelry to check. But if you search Bluebird of Happiness, you'll find this pattern. So the pattern itself is written for worsted weight. I used fingering weight. This is Twisted Fiber Art. No longer on Etsy, but if you go to this site on Etsy, it will give you the information to how to find this yarn. There's a new website. The colorway I used is Firefly, and the yarn is Ariel, which is either 100% superwash merino or a superwash merino nylon blend. I can't remember. Modifications to the pattern. I obviously worked it with fingering weight, so I went down to size 1 needles. I gave it wings because Lisa and I decided that the hummingbird should have wings, and they're not perfectly centered. But I don't know. I was having a really hard time figuring out placement, so hopefully Lucas will like it anyway. And instead of keeping this tail open until the end and stuffing, I Kitchenered it when I got to the tail. And then I stuffed it through the hole at the top. And instead of binding off the last stitches at the nose, I did an I-cord to give it kind of a beak. I think that hummingbird's beaks might be a little bit longer, but I didn't want it to be too floppy because of the weight. So it stands out pretty well. Stands straight out pretty well. I think it looks like a hummingbird. I think it's really pretty. The colorway is gorgeous. It's a self-striping yarn, but it's got gradual stripes. So they flow into each other. It's more like a color changing yarn, but the color change repeats. So the self-striping color change, depends on who you ask. I also started something that you won't be able to tell what it is. But it is the American Bison pattern by Delicious Crochet. It is a pattern that you buy through Etsy, but you can find it by searching on Ravelry, and clicking on the link will take you to the Etsy site. So the American Bison, the pattern calls for much larger loops than this, and it's also worked in, it just says acrylic. Jenna's allergic to acrylic, so I'm not using acrylic. I assume it means worsted weight. That's what everybody else used. There's no yardage given, so I'm a little bit nervous about it. But I'm using instead 716 knit, 716 Boss in the colorway Everyone Wants Petrified Hamsters, and they're never happy with them. So here is hamsters. This was a short skein that I got at the ZK, so it's only half the length of a normal Boss skein. So this is small. And then I had leftovers from the Tappan Zee that I knit. So this is 716 Boss in Dead Guys on Ice. So this is the first bit of leftovers that I have. I made the loops short because I didn't want to run out of yarn, but I think it will still give the effect that I still think it'll give the effect of the Bison loop for anus. I just started it, so I'm still working on the head. It's a full piece, so head, torso, legs, tail, I think. Hopefully she'll like it, and I will have an update for you next week. 2nd of June, 2014. The Bison is coming along. It now has eyes and horns and ears and a face. Oh yeah, it wasn't even a head last time, I don't think. So the eyes, I used Premier Serenity sock in navy for the dark part, and then the red purple is from a mini skein that I got last year at ZK. It's 716 knit. I don't know what the colorway is. And the white for the eyes and the horns are 716 knit bear. So isn't he cute? Oh, I love him so much. I have a modification to the pattern. I picked up stitches for the back of the head, or for the body. You're supposed to make the body and then sew it onto the back of the head. However, that would take up yardage, obviously, and I'm trying to conserve yardage because I'm making the loops a little bit bigger, so it's a little more shaggy. So it's close cropped on top, but shaggier on the face, and then all of the other places it will be shaggy as well. So it's a little more prep at the setup of making the body, but when you think about how much work would go into sewing in the head and the body, especially with all the loops like they're going to have, see this all loops, I don't think it's any more time to do it this way, and then I'm saving myself the rounds that I would have to make flat and then sew on. See you next week with more progress. 9th of June, 2014. I finished the Bison, and it is now full of mods. So the head was made mostly to specifications. And then I started running out of yarn, or I started thinking I was going to run out of yarn. I picked up around the head to make the body. I'm pretty sure I told you about that last week. But the body is supposed to be made separate from the head, so it doesn't really matter where the colors are because you just make sure they're in the right place when you attach it. I started working it and then realized that what I was doing was upside down. I decided to go with it rather than pull it out because at that point I was like almost through with the blue, and that's a lot of loop stitches to pull out. If it was just regular single crochet, I probably would have pulled it out and fixed it, but loop stitches are a lot more work than just a single crochet, as most decorative stitches are. Whether you're a knitter or crocheter, I think you realize that. So I left the colors going the wrong way. And then I realized that I was running out of gray once I got through this loop section. So I started striping in the blue. That's not in the pattern, that's just what I did. And I ran out of gray right here. I didn't even make it all the way back to the beginning of the round, which is right here. So I used all 122 yards of hamsters. So other modifications I made this body much shorter. I took out probably, I think it was 6 loop stitch rounds, and then maybe a quarter of this, shortened this. I have the tail attached. It's supposed to be taken off and then attached later, because in the pattern it's worked from here to here, but I just reversed it and worked down the tail so that I would not have to, well, first so I wouldn't have to close up this end completely, like it's not a lot of stitches that would have been wasted, but I would have had to waste stitches closing it up and then yarn to sew on the tail. So I just did it this way. And the tail on the pattern is more fluffy at the end, but whatever. This is totally a baby instead of a full-sized one. The legs, because I was running out of the gray. So I was running out of the gray, and the gray is supposed to be on the front legs for this whole section. So I just put in the gray for a little bit on the front and then finished in blue. The loop section is shorter. You're supposed to close up the top of these legs, but I was sewing them onto the body, so I didn't close them up. I just left them open and sewed them on like that. I did the same for these legs. Instead of closing them up, I just left them open and sewed them on. And I took out several rounds on the back legs. I think it's still pretty cute. Still looks like a little baby bison buffalo thingy. Hopefully Jenna will like it. And I did use all of the yarn that I had left over from this sweater, actually. That was not planned. I had about 130 yards of this left over, so that's the blue. So in case you're wondering yardage, if you want to make this bison, but you want to make it 2 pattern, I used 130 yards of the contrast color and 120 yards of the main color, and I made many modifications to shorten it. That was using DK weight and a size B hook, which is 2.25 millimeters. So if you're doing it to pattern, which is worsted weight and I think a size E hook, probably just get a skein of each yarn and you'll have some left over, but not a ton left over. I also made my loops really short. So you would probably use 2 full skeins of, or close to full skeins of Red Heart Super Saver, if that's what you were going to use, which it seems like other people used. I also finished 3 things. They're very small. So at the ZK, Lisa is giving / gave, I guess this will be past ZK time, Fiona a baby elephant, and I made a little blanket for the baby elephant. I used the carousel is what the square is called. You can find it on Ravelry. I'll link it in the show notes for the base for this. And the way carousel works is that it stays to this point, it stays circular, and then you square it out to be, an 8-inch square or a 12-inch square, whatever. I don't know. I've made this square like 6 or 7 times, so I don't even look at the pattern. I think that it calls for 16 spokes, and I only do 12 usually. I don't know. But you can find the pattern on Ravelry, and it's free. So instead of following the pattern to square it out, I improvised this edging because this is my hand spun. It's BFL. I think it's from the Great Adirondack Yarn Company or something. I don't remember. No, I'm totally messing this up. It'll be in the show notes what it is. But I had a little bit left over from this. It's my hand spun. I made mitts out of them last year. Out of this, and this was my leftovers. And I actually had to fudge. So in each of these chain sections, it's 3 single crochets, except for the very last one, which is only 2 because I ran out of yarn, which I thought was perfect. I can't even tell which one it is right now, but that was perfect. And then I blocked it out to be squared because it was circular when I finished it. But I thought that I was going to leave it circular, but then I started blocking it and it just said, hey, I want to be a square. So I made this little blanket. I made a shawl for a monster that Lisa gave Kira. This is out of Handspun. This was the Fiber Cat Mystery Bat that I won for Tour de Fleece last year, and then I spun up into a 2-ply, letting it do whatever it wanted. So I think it's about a worsted, and I wanted it to look like ribbing, so I crocheted it, and I crocheted in the back loop for all of the stitches. I kind of wanted something that looked similar to a hitchhiker or a dragon's tail, or you know, that shape with the little points. So I just ended each row a little bit shorter. It's not perfect, but I mean, it's for a monster, so I think it's fine. And the last thing I made is something sewn. This is for Amy, who is one of the hosts of Hops and Hanks. She really likes ladybugs, and I was not going to make this for her because Haley made her a little ladybug from all of us. My group of friends and I, we share gifts at the ZK. I'm sure I said that, but maybe not. So I found this shirt of Mara's that had a ladybug on it, and this is what the fabric was for the shirt. So it's something that she was like a 1-year-old size, and I couldn't pass it on because it had a stain that wouldn't come out. But this fabric, this part of the fabric, and this were perfectly fine. So I decided to make a little notions bag. This is just some ribbon I had sitting in my stash. And this denim is from Mara's old pants, because after I don't buy my kids clothes because my sister has kids who just pass on their clothes. Like every time I see my sister, she hands me a huge garbage bag full of clothing that's still in wearable condition. So that's what my kids wear. But after Mara, sometimes the clothes are good and sometimes they're not. So like the cuffs might be a little frayed, or especially in elastic waist pants. By the time Mara is through wearing them, they're usually pretty blown out. So these are from a pair of pants that were in fine condition, except the elastic was destroyed, and I'm not willing to go through the effort of getting elastic and putting it into pants. I'm too lazy for that. So I just used the leftover denim to make this little bag. And that is the last gift I am making for anyone for ZK. So I am done with my gift ZK making. I don't have any new finished objects this week. I'm so close on this work in progress right here. These are It's Blizzard Ho For Me socks, which is my pattern. And last week I was here at this toe. I don't even think I was where the stitch marker is. I think I just started. I don't think I was through the first stripe. So I've done all this, and these are going to be knee highs. I have 4 stripes per sock to go. So these will be finished today, which is good because I like to do the to finish this month thing, and I have 2 projects still on the blanket, and one of them is not going to get finished. But this, I can do 4 stripes in a day. It's not my favorite thing to do, to force myself to work that much on this project, just because I've knit this project this will be the 4th time since I released it in, what was that, February? It's a lot of times to do the sock. 2 of the versions were short socks, they were calf socks, and only one has been finished as knee highs, but these will also be knee highs, and I was like, I'm ready to be done. But I will be. Today I'll be done with these, and that's awesome. This yarn is 716 knit, 716 sock in the colorway 5x5. I'm using US size 1, 2.25 millimeter needles, and all sorts of stitch markers, most of them from 716 knit. Although these cute little star ones came from Rain Lover. I bought them in her Etsy shop because I love stars. The other project that's on my official to finish this month list is the Dreambird by Nadita Swings, and I'm keeping the yarn for it in my Java Jenny kitchen counter crafter bag. And I didn't notice this until, I don't know, sometime after the podcast last week. But look, my bag has frog snap. So this is not getting finished this month because I have one feather. And my yarn is really not this much of a mess. It's just the way I picked it up. So I only have one feather finished, and I don't know how many feathers the pattern calls for. I think it's just one of those go until you're done sort of things. I definitely want this to be a nice sized shawl for my mom. So it'll be a while. I think I can reasonably get a section like this finished every 2 days. So it'll be at least a month to finish this, starting today, because I did this and then I was like, I don't love this. It has short rows involved, they're cool, but they're not my favorite thing. If Josh, sort of a knitter, was working on this, it'd be done because he loves short rows. I could take him or leave him. If this was a cabled shawl, I'd be all over it. But I thought my mom would like it, and the pattern is so beautiful. It was gifted to me by Kelly of Sheep Dreamery last year sometime, I think, a long time ago. And I just didn't ever have the right yarn for it, but I think this will be perfect for it. I'm using Peyton's lace in, I believe, this white it's a long color repeat yarn. It goes white to gray to almost black and then back. So I'm pretty sure that's the smoke colorway. And then this red is Peyton's lace sequins. So I think, yeah, you can see those sequins sparkling a little bit. I'm using US size 2.75 millimeter needles. The pattern calls for a 2.5, 3.0 millimeter needle, but I don't have a 2.5, so I just went with a 2.75 millimeter. I also don't have a US 3.25 millimeter needle in anything except double points, so that wasn't really an option. It'll be beautiful. I enjoy the product. The process, though, I'm like, ugh, it's going to be quota knitting. It'll be fine. These socks are also quota knitting because my best friend wants them, and I've known that since practically the beginning of the year, so it was time. Things that are super fun for me that I'm really excited that I'm working on. I have 2 spinning projects. I have some fiber that Josh gave me at the ZK to spin for him. So it's Huckleberry Knits. It's 100% superwash BFL in the Centurion colorway, and I only have a small. I'm holding it in this awesome bag that Jerry made for me. So this is a little bit of the fiber. I'm doing a fractal lace. So this is how fine it's spinning. And when it's a 2-ply, it'll be roughly like that. I have this, when I get through this ball of yarn, it will be the first ounce. I'm loving this spin. This is a Golding spindle that I traded my friend for. She just decided spindles weren't for her, and she had bought a Golding, and I was like, I love spindles. She was getting a wheel. I don't have a wheel, so I love spindles. And this is just, this BFL is just so lovely. Do you see the crimp in that? It's just drafting beautifully, and it says, yes, I will be a lace for you, which I always love when fiber does what I want it to. The other spinning project I have is the merino bats that I got from my friend Lorraine that she made at Kentucky Sheep and Fiber. This is what the next strip of the bat looks like. So it's got the teal base and then purple, yellow, orange. And I'm just kind of letting it spin however it wants. It's spinning, it'll probably be a sport-ish 2-ply. Because I'm going to spin this bat and then spin the other bat, which will be more like a gradient, and then ply the two together. I'm also doing a test knit, and I can't show it to you, but I can show you the yarns I'm using. I'm using Lorna's Laces, and this is the Shepherd Sock, 80% superwash wool, 20% nylon, and the color is Black Watch. And to go with it, I have Sensations Truly in the Truly turquoise color. So they don't, there's no, this skein does not have this color in it, but this color is working up beautifully with this skein, which is what I like. I have Hexa Puffs this week. Not as many as I should, but I have some. I have 5, and they are, let's see, I think this one is from Mickey. From Mickey and from Stash, because I only had enough to do this part, the first half in Mickey yarn, and then the rest is little leftover bits that I had. This yarn, I believe, is from Mickey, and this yarn is from Mickey. And these 2 yarns are yarns that I got at the ZK. This one is 716 Knit. It was the Daria Club color prototype for Television Counts as a Place. I think that's what the actual colorway was called, but this was the prototype. I also have 5 squares on my blanket, so not quite back to my normal pace, but I'm getting there. So there's Television Counts as a Place. Here's the other ZK yarn. And then these squares are from yarn from Mickey. This one that I'm half covering with my hand, this one, and this one. I should be back to my normal pace this coming week. I have some new things that I got at the ZK but forgot to show you because they were small, and there are some other things that I got at the ZK that are just not on my desk, so you may see them in the future or not. I don't know yet. It'll depend if they ever make it to my desk. So what I have to show you are some stitch markers. Mandy, who is Bacon Fairy, made these little bacon stitch markers. Adorable, right? I love it. I think it's super great. And Haley from Knit Two Together made stitch markers to give out, and this one is a hand and it says handmade. She gave me this stitch marker, and she had lots of different stitch markers, and she definitely had the handmade one in gold and silver, and she gave me the gold one first, and I put it on my project and I was like, do you have a silver one? Because the gold was like, not a gold person. I don't enjoy looking at it the way that I enjoy looking at silver things, and plus all of my other stitch markers are silver, so it just kind of clashed. Is that silly? That I didn't want to use the stitch marker because it clashed with my other stitch markers. Maybe a little silly. But she let me trade it out, and that was wonderful. So I really love those stitch markers, and they're not on projects right now because I wanted to make sure that I would actually show you, but they're going on to projects pretty much immediately. I have been reading this week the King Arthur, Story of King Arthur and His Knights by Howard Pyle, but not been reading a lot this week. Maybe a couple chapters over the last 7 days. The language, it's not bad. It's just my brain has to translate still. But I know that once I get a few more chapters into it, my brain will just auto-translate and I won't even think about what words are supposed to mean or, what they mean. That it'll just be an automatic thing. It'll be just like Clockwork Orange, just language. My list for you this week are 3 podcasts. It's a Pearl Thing with JD. She is she's on YouTube. She used to do a podcast back and forth with a friend of hers. They were like knitting diaries that they shared back and forth, but they parted ways for whatever reason. I think they were both in college. I never saw the videos that her friend made, just the ones that she made to her friend. So I think they're both in college, and college is a hectic time. So whatever. She's cute. She spins. She knits. She might crochet. I can't remember. I actually watched all of her episodes like a month ago and just put her on the list to tell you about, but then the ZK happened, so brain function is not back to normal yet, so I can't remember. The second thing is Positively Knitting with Nicole. She was a co-host on the Wolf Farms podcast for the first 30 episodes, I think. And then life happened, so now she does her own podcast, which I greatly enjoy. She has a great smile and a really good attitude about her knitting and crafting in general. She just recently got into sewing, so she talks about that. And the third one is Knitting in Circles with Darren and Amy, which you've probably heard of. I can't imagine how you'd be watching my podcast and not at least have heard of it, but maybe not. I don't assume that people have watched podcasts because I'm just watching them. So if I'm the first knitting podcast you stumbled across on YouTube, then you wouldn't necessarily know about these ones. So they are a couple, and in the beginning it was mostly just Amy recording, but now it's pretty much always Amy and Darren together. They both knit, and it's an enjoyable podcast. I will say it's not my favorite podcast that I've ever watched, but it's still enjoyable. Sometimes they go off on tangents that I'm like, whatever. But so do some of my favorite podcasters, and sometimes I skip parts of my favorite podcasters' podcasts. Sorry, Josh. When he goes waxing on about the tea, because I hang out with him in VKNs and I've probably already heard it, I'm just like, I'll skip a minute. I'll skip another minute. And if you do that with my podcast, I'm totally okay with it. I would skip parts of my own podcast too, sometimes. Going back to rewatch for the editing, I have to watch sections twice because I totally blank myself out. Anyway, now I'm rambling, and I'm going to go. I hope you made something fantastic with your sticks and string. I will see you next week. Bye.